Hey, Dad. Hi, Dad. Baby, is this happening? Ew. Ew. Why? Huh? Oh, Mom. Can I miss you? Mom.
Kalani, you want to pay? You want to pay for that out your money? I mean, you can get a.
Here's the bag. No, no, not mine. I didn't know it was mine. I didn't. No, it's 11. I'm trying to figure out which one I need.
Well, it's out. If you make the rest of the money back in, you can take it out. If you put the last one together, then it's out.
Oh, I didn't order none of
You
this.
told me all of that. I'm moving it, but I was just telling you that it's $2.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? How's everyone doing? Jamal, let me know you're here. I think you're sharing the screen. People are going to be filing in, but I hope you all are doing well. I think I have my video on. I'm out and about, so you guys understand. But okay, so Jamal says he's going to leave and come out for a moment. His mic isn't working, but I'm going to kick us off. No worries. And so, yeah, I'm just reading through chat. Yo, what's going on, Wendy? Leandra, Big Money Leandra, got a big day on Friday. Hey, Roger, nice seeing you again. Ro, I saw you earlier today. Kanisha, Philip, AD, what's going on, y'all? Aaron, Alexis, Amber, Anthony, Ariana, what's going on? Ashley, Bilal, Brandon, I see you. Chris Brown, Chris Breezy, Jerry, Ian, what's going on? Jason, Jeff, I see you. Kayla, Kishana, Kevin, I see you. Malcolm, Mark H, nice to see you here. Stacy, as always, Terry. We were just on the phone earlier. Tracy, you too. Torrance, nice to see you. Victoria, Wendy. Yuri, Big Money Yuri, Clarence, Jaquan. Thank you everybody for joining in. Uh, I'm going to Jamal's going to be joining in soon, but I'm going to do my best to kick us off. And I'm out and about, but we are making do just the way we can. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Alexis, how you doing? So I'm gonna share my screen until Jamal comes in. His mic wasn't working at the moment, but you guys are gonna see something kind of cool. So this is gonna be an interesting thing here. Let me see. Let me know if you can see the slides right now. So it's gonna look like this, and when Jamal taps in, we are going to go ahead and switch over. But really glad to have you all here, family. I'm really grateful to be hosting this session again for you all. We are excited to bring this session to you again. the new quarter game plan. Not only are we starting a new month, we are starting a new quarter, and that is a huge piece and huge transition point right now in 2026. Before we get started, let me know where you're from, and also, how is 2026 going for you? I really am curious about that answer, and I definitely want to see some of your responses because I know we're going to have a plethora of answers for sure.
Test. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jamal. I have a
Okay,
little
cool.
bit of an echo though. Hey, what's going on? Okay, I see you guys. I think I still might be sharing screen and just seeing. Down bad in the market. That's okay. Haven't had the time to trade. You're in the UK, California. Hasn't been a great quarter for me. This quarter has been up and down. For me, I'd say it's been middle of the road. It's been a bit slow, but what's going on? Bronx, more UK, Florida. Just put where you are from, everybody. God is good. Yes, Salvador. All right, so Ma, if you don't mind just muting yourself for a moment, just because of the echo. But really glad to, if you guys can still see the slides. So I just wanted to know because I just wanted to see where everyone is and just, how you're balancing your experience so far with 2026. We're going to give you a bit of a game plan as well as some rules to be following for the next 3 months. And what we're going to leave you all with, and for everyone who registered, we're also going to follow up in an email with a playbook and a 90-day plan that you should be working through for April all the way until June, all right, till the end of June. And so again, we're welcoming you. Just know that this is being recorded. We will have this recording available on our app as well as on our website at teach.trade. What the goal here of today's session will be to gain a clear monthly blueprint as well as a quarterly blueprint. All right. For you to understand the broader market context, we're going to be marking key levels and also giving an overview of these sectors overall. I'm going to give you a high level takeaway as well as what my thoughts are moving forward and a bit of a recap of what the past 3 months have been. There's a lot I have to say about that. And then we're going to get into exactly what types of setups you should be looking for because you have a bit of homework tonight as well as tomorrow because tomorrow is the first day of the new quarter. And we're going to show you exactly what you should be looking for and walking away with any types of stocks that you may have not considered prior and that you're able to take action on your own, not just rely on us, for intel. And so this slide right here, we wanted to share this. Does anybody recognize or remember this slide? Anybody who was in our January session, you would recognize this slide because this is exactly what we said in January on January 5th about what was going to happen in 2026. And what our first impression of what the market was going to give. We did have bullish outcomes. We did talk about oil and more having even further highs. Jamal made it a very huge point to look at oil in our January session when we looked at the next quarter. As you all can see, we had a major pullback in tech and many of the sectors, which we will cover today. And we had a really huge explosion for oil for all of those past 3 months. And so that's going to be the opportunity where today we're going to give another look forward, basing it on the history of looking backwards. Okay. And so that's going to be what becomes important for today's session. I'm going to let Jamal cover earnings and more in a moment. And so Jamal, feel free to come back to these slides and to highlight which earnings that we're going to be looking at. But I'm going to walk through what exactly we're looking for in any given trade. All right. So the crucial time frames that you should be looking at, and you can take a screenshot of this page. click or first you have to pay attention to the 1 month chart. And we are going to be looking at the 3 month chart. What's not written here, but another component is that you should be looking at the 6 month chart fully as well. There are so many tickers, and there's one in particular that you guys are gonna want to see that I covered later here today. That you want to be looking at the 6 month because there are quite a lot of setups where we have started a setup on the 6 month and we ain't done yet, right? There's still movement for that all the way until July. And so these are the crucial time frames where you are going to want to look for hammers, inside candles, or shooters. Okay? Hammers, inside candles, or shooters on these time frames. That is what you're going to be navigating, and that's also going to be a big component of what we start looking at today. Because those are going to be what give us insight into looking forward and being able to prepare those key levels if price breaks beyond those levels or if we find reversals back through those levels. Okay. Everybody understand? Everyone can make sense of that? Press one in the chat. So I'm going to deviate a little bit here from the slides, and I'm just going to show you guys as well. I have a couple of notes. This is going to be an impromptu, but I'm going to cover a couple of tickers as well as a couple of tickers as well as a couple of sectors to put into place. All right. And so the first thing I'm going to start with this stock, but then I'm going to navigate to the sectors so that we can go ahead and look at them. So you have that top-down analysis about what we're going to expect over the next 3 months. First and foremost, Netflix. Good old Netflix. We just traded Netflix very recently, caught over 200% on the day trade. But the thing is here about Netflix, off of the bounce, what you can see here on this chart is that on this quarter, Netflix is hitting a previous low, just a little bit over $80. And at that same point, we're also hitting this gap. Do you see this area between these three candles on the left? That is a fair value gap, right? A bullish one. After we hit that and we're tagging this low, where you see what that says as a 3, this is fully, and everyone's still able to see my screen, right? Just want to make sure. On my screen, it's not showing that it is. All right, cool. So we're hitting that low at 80. And off of that, this is what we're looking at as a confirmed side of liquidity. All right. And so as we are hitting that low, we're taking liquidity, AKA we're going to have a reversal hitting previous lows. And we're forming a hammer right after on the quarter. If we go green tomorrow, and we have a shorter trading week, either tomorrow or next week, we can get a huge move given all we have to do is move $4 to the upside, break 100, and then we at that point have the potential for a 10% correction to the upside. A 10 to 20% correction to the upside on Netflix, all right? So mark $100 on Netflix. That's a really crucial level that you want to be seeing and that you want to be identifying. But this is as simple as it gets for some of the setups that we're looking for. And that this can pull in high value results over time, just looking for that trigger. If we do not have that trigger above 100, Netflix is just going to sit in a large range and not really do much of anything for the next 3 months. So that's going to be something that you consider on that side when it comes to that. All right. Now I'm going to jump into some of the sectors that I have here, and let me just show you guys. So one thing here, I'm going to cover each sector and give my full results. I'm going to point out which ones that you need to pay attention to. But the first thing you guys need to do before I do that is make sure you write down Netflix and that you go on your trading view right now and set an alert at that $100 level. So let's move on. For the financial sector, this is XLF, X-Ray Lima Foxtrot. And so this is the yearly chart for the banks, XLF. And so anybody who is familiar with the LVL or the outside candle, or the outside candles in general, right? We hit the high of 2025, and that we have now retraced half of that in only 3 months. We've retraced half of the previous year in only 3 months. That is increasing the probability that we fall all the way and hit the low of the previous year. All right, at $42. Do you mind muting Jamal or whoever is speaking? And so when we are able to, with this, we can start looking for $42 puts on the other side. So $42 puts for January 2027. Put that as a leap. $42 puts for 2027. Put that as a leap idea, because that is very possible based on this chart, as well as based on recent news, how silver has been moving, how gold has been moving, how the US dollar, DXY, has been spiking. This is going to cause, and if you read in the news, there's also fears of new bank runs. If anybody remembers 2022, banks had an awful year, all of 2022, especially small banks, because bank runs, when people have a lot of fear, if the credit is too high, and then the banks don't have enough money to cover what they are looking to have, that can cause fears that lead people to running to the bank and extracting money from there. I'm not going to feed into that fear. I'm just saying it's a possibility, given that 2026 looks scarily similar to 2022. And so with that correction, that's what you want to be looking at. The risk here for banks is at 48.50 or so. At 48.50 or so, you see that we have the opening of 2025, and we have a bit of a wick next to that candle. All right. And if you guys aren't familiar with charting candles, just make sure you watch one of our videos on our app. It's very simple. But XLF, either we bounce off of the 2025's open and we have a little bit of a retracement in the next 3 months, or we continue to fall down all the way to $42. That's going to be those two outcomes for the financial sector. Communication sector looks really similar. On the year, it has an LVL trigger to the downside. For anyone not familiar with the LVL, that is our proprietary strategy. This is what we use in every given trading day, where we just look for a sweep of a high or a low and a retracement back through a range. And so on XOC, which is Google, Meta, this is happening right now on the year itself. You can see the other side is about $85. I wouldn't necessarily initially say $85 puts for 2027, but what I would want you guys to really look at is look deeply into the tickers that are in the XLC sector. All right. And so Meta, oh my God, Meta, Mark Zuckerberg getting sued. The metaverse is an L. Anybody who pays attention to OpenAI and Sora and all of those things, Meta is next. They're about to get cooked or shut down their AI slot machine service that they have on the app, because nobody is truly interested in wanting to produce that kind of content by themselves. ChatGPT, who has, I think, 300 million users or 800 million users, something like that. Sora users was only at 500,000. So how many users do you think are using Meta's slot machine? That's chugging money, and Meta cannot take that. So look at Meta as well. Meta actually has a setup on it itself, but that's going to be particular to XLC, that sector. Semiconductors are really a bit weird. Semiconductors, according to this chart that you see on my screen, we look really bearish. That definitely looks like a giant shooter on the 6 month. Remember I said the 6 month. We still have another 3 months until July, until we start a new 6 month candle. But we did some swiper no swiping of that previous high of, I believe that's 2024. And now we're trading back through this range and forming a shooter. So we could retrace some of that as well, of that previous candle. But semiconductors are still really strong. There's a lot of need. And one of my biggest trade ideas that I'm running for this next quarter is a semiconductor. So it's kind of like a weird scenario that we're kind of like looking in here on semis. But take note of the chart. Mark $40 for a key level. Make sure to mark $40 as a key level here. Under $40, this really does take a massive dump. All right. I'm just flipping through. Real estate has a giant shooter. If real estate stocks aren't really always that great when it comes to options, but you could find something within there like
Make
ticker
sure we don't
O.
have any holes, y'all, and make sure there's no like grade
Ooh,
school.
I might. And so look at the real estate sector for some. It just looks really bearish. Everyone's trying to call. I'm just trying to make it relate to you guys, and not just from the charts. So many people. Here's the thing, right? I'm not in real estate. I'm sure some of you are realtors or in real estate. But we keep hearing a lot about people have so many houses or properties and just not being able to sell them right now. What is that going to do to that overall market? I don't want to confirm a bias, but it's just something to think about when you're also looking at the chart. And so when we have this where real estate hasn't been able to break out for like 2 or 3 years, we're now pointing to a really, awful spot. So $40 as a key level is also the same here, funnily enough. So we may break to the downside and have a massive drop in real estate. That might be crazy if something comes of that. All right. And so healthcare is also coming down. That itself also has an LVL, just a downside. You might be looking at puts on UNH. Anybody who follows Market Mondays, Ian, master investor, he says UNH is, piece of crap, essentially. And Bitcoin, we are still below the lows of the previous year here for Bitcoin. And we have 9 months to go. And so those are some crucial areas there. All right. So the main ticker so before I get to the main ticker, just be aware of gold to the downside, either to the downside or in the middle. I don't really see gold going up that much in the next quarter. We did have a massive correction after gold ran up so much in the past 2 months. But silver on the quarter has a giant shooter. So that, I definitely do see this having downside to start April. I see silver having downside to start April, but will it stay down all the way till June? I personally don't think so. We'll see in June, God willing that we all, make it there and nothing crazy goes on, And we talked about Netflix. So 2 big things, and I'm going to pass it to Jamal, all right? You guys let me know if this stuff is insightful and if, you guys are marking your levels and setting your alerts. That's definitely the most crucial part I want you guys to be thinking about, and to really pay attention to those sectors, especially that financial sector. So the 2 big ones I see is AMD. AMD, this is the quarter. This has a inside quarter that is also a shooter. All right. There's an inside quarter that is also a shooter. And not only is it that, we are taking liquidity, aka hitting a previous high and reversing. Hitting a previous high, reversing. You can tell by these long, skinny lines that we call wicks. We are doing that, then forming an actionable signal. For anyone who doesn't know, an actionable signal is a candle where it's providing a setup for a trader to take action. And like we said earlier, typically that takes the form of inside candles, hammers, or shooters. Well, this is an inside candle and a shooter after hitting a previous high. Anyone who learns the strat, this is the most ideal setup that you can find for a trade. And so I'm just a bit torn because this is going to certainly depend on the semiconductor sector, what it does provide. If the semiconductor is bearish, like just the whole sector, AMD is going to be your pick. You guys need to watch AMD these next 3 months. It is your God-given right and will to watch AMD for these next 3 quarters because this may be one of those bigger trades. As you pair that with the sector and that you're able to identify, because the amount of price targets on this to the downside are so large, and you could capture a really hefty swing trade without having to watch your portfolio every single day, without having to day trade through it. This can be just a simple, nice and smooth trek all the way to the downside. And so, oh, you're leaving. All right, take care. And so, what we have here is that you want to mark 190 as your significant level, take down AMD 190 as your significant level, and make sure that you are looking for those targets back to the other side. All right, because AMD really is setting up to be one of those big ones. And now, my current top trade of the next 3 months. And then I'm going to pass it to Jamal, and then we're going to do a full-on covering of earnings. And then we're going to get to Jamal's setups and also get some input from you guys for what trades that you want to be looking at or what charts you want us to go over. Feel free to put those in the chat. Although, you can put that in now. You can also put that in, once we get to that part. But I just want to let you guys know, and again, it's a privilege to have your time. I want you guys to know this is the biggest trade that I'm looking at for the next quarter, but it depends on just a couple of factors. ARM, ARM. ARM is already active. It's actually already triggered, right? We don't want to consider this as too late, but it still has a lot of time to develop. ARM, I am looking at a price target on ARM of $200. All right. On the screen, you are currently looking at the 6-month, and the 6-month chart is taking a low, and it's reversing back through a range, just like we always do here on the LVL. The 6-month still active until July. We have the opportunity to get to 188. We're currently trading at 151. So imagine $31 to the upside. ARM is very likely going to do that. It has a setup on the quarter, and it has a setup on the 6-month. The 6-month is what we currently see. But I'm thinking ARM is going to make new all-time highs. All right. ARM, I know it's a little bit messy here. Let me just see. And then again, I'm going to pass it to my brother soon. Right now, it's not letting me. There we go. So here on the quarter, we swept the low of October through December of 2025. Retraced back to that range. And now a break above 160, not even getting to the high of the previous quarter. I'd say 155, 160, those are going to be your trigger points to really be considering a big move, not only back to all-time highs, but more highs to come. I don't know if anyone else has been looking at ARM recently, but this has been trading in such a range, and really just a really large range, actually. It's had a lot of upside, but it's found a lot of difficulty to actually, maintain anywhere. It's just been trading between this 188 and 100. But the most recent thing we did do was we hit a major low. That was back in March of last year, literally 1 year ago. And then we formed this higher low in February of this year. So this has been pushing again already. This has been pushing for about 2 or 3 weeks. But long term, as this is able to find its way and make one more higher high, I'm looking at this at 200. This depends on the factor of the semiconductor sector, and it does factor in about the demand for semiconductors as it relates to AI and more of those things. Those are going to be the news that you want to watch, as well as watching, let's say, another stock like TSM. But this is one of the biggest trades I'm looking at. So I'm looking at 175 calls for 2027. All right. And so, depending on expiration, that may be January or April of 2027. I am looking at 175 calls. Okay. So that's going to be one of the biggest trades I'm looking at. I'm going to be, setting an alert. I can even set one right here. Let me just do that. But I really wanted to make sure that you guys have just a bit of a breakdown of what we should anticipate. And as we navigate the war, as we navigate, whatever the next steps and, follow through. And Jamal, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that video that you had posted that kind of, in a way, predicted like what some parts of the Iran war would had been building up to, or like what had been bubbling and what those expectations were. He posted a really, really nice video within our Discord community. And that's going to just be what transitions, and gives the heads up about what those next couple of quarters, or rather, next couple of months are going to look like. The president wants to pull out of the war. He's doing everything in his power to do so. Is that going to give us the bounce that we may be looking for in these next few days, or excuse me, next few weeks? Or are we going to continue to trickle down and that we're not really affected by that news anymore? But those triggers are going to come, and that's going to deliver a lot of information for us to, kind of see from there. So I'm really grateful for, that time that you guys, in a way, are able to, give me and provide, and that level of overview of the market. Let me know if that was helpful. We're going to continue this going. We're going to cover all the important earnings coming up, especially the big earnings happening here in April. And then Jamal is going to fully break down, more tickers and cover and answer more of your questions that you have about how to navigate this current market.
All right, all right. Let's give a big hand for Taylor Key Hamilton. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go into the earnings for this month, well, the next coming month, April. So right off the bat, I can tell you that, the first half of April is not going to be too exciting. So coming up tomorrow, we don't really have too much stuff going on. And I want to say for this week and for maybe next week, April, it's not really too many exciting stocks. So tomorrow we have Conagara Foods, and gold company, Nova Gold. And nothing really exciting, like I said, for this week. But then next week, I think we have Levi Stratus, Levi Jeans. They have earnings. BlackBerry, I'm sorry, APLD has earnings on April 8th. Constellation Brands has earnings also on April 8th. And BlackBerry has earnings on April 9th. And that's next week. And then we get to, kind of 3 weeks in, and that's where you kind of get all of the banks that are going to be popping off and giving their earnings. So, I mean, it's a lot. So we'll try to go through ones and kind of spot the ones whose icons look the most familiar. Let me see if I can even zoom in here. Us going over there. So Goldman Sachs has earnings on April 13th. And then we have JP Morgan on April 14th. There's a lot of people who have earnings. JP Morgan has earnings in the morning. ExxonMobil has earnings in the afternoon on the 14th. Johnson & Johnson on the 14th. Citibank, BlackRock, Wells Fargo, United Airlines, Unilever, CarMax. I'm trying to see the ones whose icons jump out at me. So all of those are on April 14th. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of banks, either regional or big banks. And so that rounds out the 14th basically. And then the 15th, we have ASML. That's a big semiconductor. Looks like Bank of America on the 15th as well. Morgan Stanley. This is Progressive Insurance. KMI, Kinder Morgan. M&T Bank. First Horizon Bank. So this is a regional, I think it's a regional bank. It's a bank. A lot of banks have earnings in April, the latter half of April. Commerce Bank, all of those bank heavy on the 15th. On the 16th of April, we got a couple of more familiar names. So TSM, as Key mentioned earlier, could be a play with AMD. They have earnings on April 16th. We also have Netflix has earnings on April 16th. PepsiCo has earnings on April 16th. Charles Schwab, that's who makes Thinkorswim. They have earnings on April 16th. Blackstone, Abbott Technologies or Abbott Laboratories, they have earnings. USA Bank, Travelers, Alcoa AA, they have earnings. Infosys has earnings. Citizens Bank, Jinko Solar, First Financial, a lot of banks are all having earnings this week, but specifically April 16th. Watch out for TSM, Netflix, Charles Schwab, Abbott. Those will be some of the stars happening that happen to have earnings on April 16th. April 17th, it looks like Ally Bank, Truist Bank, Regions Bank. They all have earnings on that day, 17th. So like I said, this week, April, let's say 13th through the 17th, is really heavy on the banks. And then we also have Netflix and TSM that have earnings on the week of April 13th. And so like I said, after that week, it really gets popping. So you can see there's a lot of companies here, and we'll try to go through them. April 20th, I'm not really seeing anything that pops out. We can just go through it just to make sure none of these are any household names. But they're all, looks like regional banks. April 21st, we have Tesla. We have United Health. We have Intuitive Surgical. We have Lockheed Martin. We have GE Aerospace. Interactive Brokers. RTX, they make weapons of mass destruction. Enphase. 3M. Capital One Bank. Moody's. Halliburton. Just making sure none of these are household names. I'm just trying to go through all the things that, might be relevant. And I think they put them top first. So yeah, we want to watch out for Tesla, UNH, Lockheed Martin. They make weapons of mass destruction. RTX, they make weapons of mass destruction. 3M, want to keep a lookout for those on April 22nd. I'm sorry, April 21st. But then when we do get to April 22nd, we have ServiceNow, we have Vertiv Holdings, we have IBM, we have LRCX, we have GE Verona, we have Boeing, AT&T, Texas Instruments, NextEra Energy, QS, Philip Morris, Viking Therapeutics, Thermo Fisher Scientifics. This is the place where he was at, I want to say last month, where he held the conference with this company, touring their services. The president is who I'm referring to. General Dynamics, they make weapons of mass destruction as well. Southwest Airlines. O'Reilly. And that rounds it up pretty much for April 22nd. April 23rd, we got the big Google having earnings on April 23rd. Intel also has earnings on April 23rd. American Express, Celestica, CLS has earnings on April 23rd. Honeywell, American Airlines, Newmont, I think I saw Comcast, FCX, Freeport. They make, well, they mine for copper and gold. So lots of earnings happening on the latter half of April. Also, Nokia and Vale or Vale also has earnings on April 23rd. Then to round out the week, PG has earnings on April 24th. Colgate, Schlumberger. And that seems to be pretty much the big dogs on April 24th. And then it looks like the last week of April, we have a lot more stuff going on. April 27th. April 27th, we have Verizon, Cadence, Domino's Pizza, Teradyne, MPX, Semiconductors, Nucor. Some of these. Okay. So yeah, April 22nd, Verizon is the big dog. Domino's Pizza, Cadence also has earnings on April 27th. April 28th, it looks like we have SoFi has earnings. Visa has earnings, PayPal, Spotify, Coca-Cola, Starbucks, UPS, Waste Management, Seagate Technology, that's memory and hard drive stuff. Altria, MO, T-Mobile, Snap, Bookings.com, Royal Caribbean Cruise Line all have earnings on April 28th. April 29th, we have a whole bunch of big hitters. April 29th, we got Microsoft, we have Meta, we got Robinhood, we got Qualcomm, we got Chipotle, Grab, a new player on the block, Cat, ABBV, Western Digital, another memory / hardware service. Bloom Energy, this is a new one. Really good company from what I've heard. Ford, Coca-Cola. Is this? Okay, that's not. KLAC, I believe is a semiconductor, if I'm not mistaken. eBay, all of those have earnings on April 29th, as well as Etsy, GE's other company, their healthcare company, Wingstop, Humana, all have earnings on April 29th. Want to definitely watch out for those. And then the very next day, we have some more big hitters. April 30th, we have the big Apple having earnings, Amazon having earnings, Lilly having earnings, MasterCard, Reddit, McDonald's, Airbnb, Duolingo, Big Bear AI, Roblox, SanDisk, another memory hardware service that's been going off. MRK, Merck, Square or Block, Roku, CCJ, CVS, Moderna, Twilio, Twilio. Team, I can never pronounce the name of this company correctly. Altesian, Lazian. Team, Riot, Estee Lauder, Bristol Myers Squibb, Instacart, all having earnings on the 30th. So this whole week from the 27th to the 1st of May is going to be really, really jam-packed with several of the Mag 7. We got one, two, three, four of the Mag 7 at least have earnings that week. So we definitely want to keep watch on April 27th through the 30th going into May for all of those big time earnings, especially with those Mag 7 and then with those big heavy hitters in the memory sector also reporting SanDisk and Seagate just to see, what that AI and what that CapEx spending is looking like from those Mag 7s. All right. So that's earnings going all the way up into May 1st. So the month of April, like I said, the latter half is going to be jam-packed with a lot of stuff. So just get ready and get your head, in the game kind of after the week of April 13th. It's going to really, really heat up after all of these banks and whatnot have earnings. And then we're going to go into they're just going to keep throwing these big heavy hitter names at you. Everything from Tesla to Microsoft to Amazon. To SanDisk. So you just really want to watch out and see how those companies are performing so we can get a leg up on, what they're spending on, if they're continuing to spend on AI or what they're shifting into. So we can get a gist for, whatever they're spending money on is going to, take off. All right. So we went through the earnings. Key went through his tickers. Definitely keep watch out on the 1 month, the 3 month, and the 6 month charts. These are some random things that the AutoStratic radar picked up. Definitely want to keep track of these. Merck was something that also has earnings next month. So and as well as Block, XYZ. So you just definitely want to keep track of those actionable signals on the month on these specific charts. So he went through AMD and his tickers. And so now we get to my bread and butter and my things that I'm looking at. So I'm always looking at IWM. IWM as of right now doesn't necessarily look like it's going to continue to take off. On the 3 month, as you can see, it does have that big shooter there. And that basically the shooter is validated underneath 238.93. And so basically on IWM, we're looking to see if it's going to continue up or if this shooter is going to be a transition into a downtrend on IWM. If we could take a better look at the chart, let's see if we can pull that up over here and take a look at what IWM is actually doing live on stage. So on the month, basically a down candle, 2 down on the month after, wicking up. So we got these upper wicks here on the month kind of showing that there's, some selling pressure at those highs. And then if we zoom to that 3 month, that's where we'll see that potential shooter to the downside. And then that green line there represents that 238.93 that basically validates the shooter if we go 2 down on the 3 month. And then we could potentially target 228.90 as a target on that 3 month for us to reach if it does do that 2 down. Again, IWM has been pushing higher, so we want to see like if this is a continuation and it invalidates this shooter by breaking above it and going above 271.60, that would invalidate the shooter. But going below 238.93 would validate the shooter, and then we could look to take it to at least 228.90 on IWM. So if this, then that basically scenario on IWM, I'm really looking forward to try to hold above this swing high over here at 244. And then probably try to take invalidate, but we'll see. it all depends on the validation of this shooter, if it's invalidated or if it's validated. So that's what IWM looks like. Also, same thing with SPY. So SPY has a big outside down month, and it was a lot bigger before today, before they came out and said that they may want to negotiate. Speaking of Iran or Iran, and that popped the market. So this was actually, a big down red candle, but the market kind of popped off of that news. But it still finishes up as an outside candle that is red. And so what we're looking for potentially from that signal is a 3-2 combination to the downside on SPY. And that will be validated underneath 69.28 to validate this 3-2 continuation to the downside. And then we could use the low of here, 615.52, as basically our target point if we do breach that level of 629.98 to the downside. And so with this, I would say that the invalidation or a heads up that we are bullish will be a 50% retracement of this level here on the 3 months, since we're using this as our actionable signal to the downside. We can also use it as our actionable signal to the upside. And basically, if it goes back up pretty much 50% of this level, which is that dotted line right there in the box, that will be a sign that we're bullish, and we could potentially be trying to take out the high of this candle there at 69.87. So back above, our line in the sand for bulls, for bullish action on the 3 month is above 663.25. Our line in the sand for a downtrend is 629.28. And then we're looking to target on the downside 615-ish. And then we're looking to target on the upside 697-ish on SPY. So if this, then that. Also at the top of a broadening formation, as you can see there on the 3 month. So this could potentially act as resistance, or it could breach it like it is doing and continue to the upside. So we're going to be really heavily influenced by geopolitics. As you can see, when something good comes out in terms of the war ending, the market goes up. When something bad comes out and it's signs that the war is going to continue, then the market goes down. And right now, oil and the market in general are acting in opposites of each other. So when the market goes up like it did today off of good news, then oil will get clapped, and vice versa. If the market goes down, then oil goes up. And it's all because they're basically battling over a significant piece of waterway, which is the strait. And the opening of that strait, if goods are allowed to be transported through that strait, then that would include oil. And so the scarcity of oil would go down, which would lower the price. And so that's why when there's signs that the war is going to be have some sort of relief, then the price of gas goes down. But when there's signs that the war is going to continue and that waterway is not going to be opened up, then the gas price goes up. So that's why oil goes up when the war is continuing, and oil goes down when the war has signs of ending. SOXL. So SOXL is basically SMH, or the semiconductors sector times 3. And this is synonymous with what Key was talking about with AMD. I'm definitely watching SOXL as well as some other semiconductors. MU looked good, looked interesting as well, but SOXL basically tracks all of those things. And as you can see, we have another shooter here on SOXL on the 3 month. So again, with SOXL, just looking to see, what happens. If the trend is going to continue upward and try to get past this wicking that it's been doing here at this level, or are we going to break and reverse and create another trend to the downside? So as with SOXL, the entry will be, or the validation will be, breaking the low of this shooter here, and that would be 39.52. That would validate the shooter and go 2 down on the 3 month. And once it does go two down, then we could potentially target the low of the next candle, which is 28.12. So this will basically be our target. If we break 39.52, then we will definitely be trying to target to the downside 28.12. And just like with the last ticker, I would say a 50% retracement will be our line in the sand to be bullish. So 50% of that candle will be our line in the sand to potentially be bullish. And then we could take that up to an invalidation of this shooter, taking that to potentially $72 on Soxel. So that all depends on, whether they're going to keep this constant spending on semiconductors and whatnot, or if they're going to take a break. But that's what that all depends on, especially with this level here acting as consistent resistance. Want to see how price action plays out at this level, because we definitely have this resistance here where we have this wicking and continued knocking down at that level there, acting as that strong resistance, especially seeing it on the 3-month where it just can't quite get above that red zone. And so we could be exhausted of trying to get out of this or go up. And it could just take the easy route, would just be to give up and go down and take out some of these lows that is created. So that's Soxel. Again, the semiconductors are going to be on watch heavy. And then I have some curveballs. So Marvell, I'm not sure if you heard the news. I kind of didn't grasp the whole thing myself, but I believe NVIDIA invested in them today. And it's surprising because I always thought that Marvell was the next one up after MU. MU had a hell of a run and it went bonkers, I want to say, for the past couple of months. And it's really just starting to like settle down and get sold off. And so I always thought, in my opinion, that Marvell was the next up. And now they're actually getting, investments from a very big company, well, the biggest company in the world, which is NVIDIA. And so some things that I saw on Marvell was it had a fail to down on the 3-month, as well as it's in a weekly swing box breakout. If you were in any of my pods, this is one of the strategies that I use when taking trades, is to find a high and a low on a significant time frame, wait for a break of that box that's created from the high and the low, a retracement back into the box, and then a continuation outside of the box in the initial direction. And so if we look at Marvell, first and foremost, on that week, we could potentially see that box on the weekly here. Let's just go to the start. So we can see the box on the weekly. Let's say we choose this swing high here as the top of our box, and then we can choose this swing low here as the low of our box. So that would be basically our range. And we're looking for a breakout of the box and then a return back into the box. So it kind of broke out and then returned on these two candles here on the weekly. So I would still qualify this as an initial breakout, potentially trying to take out this target here. And so I definitely want to watch that on a smaller time frame. But then on the higher time frame, we do have that fail to down on the 3-month, which looks so delicious. And so we will validate that above $100.65 and potentially take that to 102, which would be an easy target. And then maybe even getting some of these equal highs here as well as here on the upside in the continuation of the 3 months. So targets at 102, that's the first target for a quick move up. And then for a more extended long-term hold, we're looking to target 110.45 and potentially 126 on Marvell if it keeps up and keeps getting institutional investment from NVIDIA as well as, other institutions. I want to see it potentially maybe reach the top of this Broadman formation. If not, Then our first line in the sand again for bearish sentiment is a 50% retracement of this fell to down, which would look something like this at that red dotted line that you can probably barely see. That would be our line in the sand. Let's say somewhere around here, 80, let's say 86. So if we break under 86, then that will be potentially bullish. And then we could be looking for it to go two down on the 3 month as our target, which would be targeting around 70-ish on the 3 month. If we draw a line in the sand and we break through 86 to the downside, then we could potentially target 70 to the downside on Marvell. But it's pretty prime to go up. I'm not trying to be biased, but Marvell looks good to the upside, especially with the news of Nvidia investing in them. Last but not least, Cisco doesn't necessarily have a move up. This is just another stock that I think has been past due to have some attention brought to it. But as you can see over there, it does have a shooter, this infamous shooter that we have on this 3 months. So as you can see, a lot of these tech companies have been getting bought up and then they got sold off because we have these shooters on a lot of the stuff that I've charted that was heavy tech. But Cisco is another one that has the shooter. It also has a red inside month. So we're trying to see, it's not really a setup besides the shooter on Cisco. We're just waiting for confirmation of what they want to do with this one. So again, if we take a look at what Cisco is doing, we can see that it is inside of a range down here on the weekly, doing some things that I like, but it hasn't necessarily broke strongly to the upside or to the downside. So again, we have sort of this consolidation. And so we have this swing high here and then kind of these swing lows down here. If we draw a range from this swing high to any one of those swing highs, let's just say this one here, we have our box. And in this case, we do have a breakout of the box, which is here. This broke out, then it came back into the box, tried to break out again, came back into the box. And so we're basically looking at the top of this box as our bullish sign, bullish above the box, and these swing highs that it created outside of the box act as target points to the upside. And then we will be bearish potentially below this mid section here will be our first level of bearish. And then this would also be a bearish trigger underneath this here. Unfortunately, to the downside, we don't necessarily have levels inside of the box that form swing lows, but we could always look over to the left and see these lows here and use those as target points. For example, here, and then this potential swing low here could potentially be used as target points to the downside where price could potentially reverse after it's taken the trip down there. But Cisco, as you can see, is still consolidating inside of the box. So this is why it's like no move, but I'm just watching this to see if it breaks above that 80.82 to potentially take out 83.11 and 88.19. Or if it wants to trickle below the line in the sand here, our bearish trigger underneath $77 and potentially take out 73.42, 71, and potentially even 66.81 on Cisco. So those are the things that I'm watching going into the next 3 months. So at this point in time, if anybody else had anything that they were looking at, or if they wanted me to chart or just give my analysis on anything, this is with the time where you could kind of come to the mic or even drop your tickers in the chat as well. And we can kind of, look at it together and see what's going on. All right. So let me see. Just if you can just drop, a little bit of DD on what it is that you see on these tickets that you're posting, just so I can get a heads up on, what specifically to look at. So for example, I think someone said, can you please look at AMD? That was one of the tickets that Key actually went over at the beginning of this, towards the beginning of this session. But AMD is kind of like Soxel. So we kind of have this shooter here on AMD where we could basically have a validation below 118.80. I'm sorry, 188.22 would validate this shooter on the 3 month. And then on the month is actually a fail two down, which will be validated above 221.33. So again, like I said, these semiconductors, we want to see what those big Mag 7 are doing as far as capital expenditures and if they're going to continue to spend on AI or not. Give me 1 second. I gotta get some water. Oh my goodness. I'll be right back. All right, excuse me for that. So net is cloud. So on cloud, it looks like we have a failed two down on the 3 month. This is one of my most favorite moves is these failed two downs. They're a bullish signal. And so on the 3 month, basically we have that validation above the high of the 3 month, which is here, 229.15. And then again, if we do a 50% retracement of this, we can draw a line in the sand as that dotted line would potentially start to be bearish on Cloudflare, flare underneath 193.98. And then on the downside, we could target a two down on the 3 month. And that would be 158.83 will be our target to the downside on there. Target to the upside would be above 229. And then we would be, I'm sorry, that would be our trigger to the upside would be above 229.15. And we will be targeting 260 even on Cloudflare on the 3 month. I don't know why it keeps doing that. That fell two down on the 3 month. Give it some time to play out and see if it can breach those levels. Hood. Hood has been getting beat up, as we can see here on the 3 month. It's just basically a two up, two down, fail two up, two down move where your entry was below there. So this would definitely just be a 2-2 continuation. It's not necessarily an actionable signal on this. On the 3 month, just looking to see if it triggers to the downside and keeps falling underneath 63.52. Damn, hood has been getting clapped. No actionable signal on the month. Same trigger as the 3 month underneath that 63.52 to the downside. Could start to look for a potential retracement back to the upside if we hit that 50% retracement on the month. right above the opening of the last month, above 74-ish, potentially be a line in the sand where we could become bullish. But as of right now, the hood has been getting really sold off. Doesn't look good. So above 74 is good, is bullish. Below 63.52 is definitely bearish on hood. Potentially fill this fair value gap right here on the month. Could target 51.07 on the month. Um, looking at Intel 12-month pullback and testing previous year high on the 3-month. We previously tested a high and made a shooter bearish bias break of 37.43. Yeah, so a lot of the semiconductors have kind of the same dance that they're doing with these shooters on the higher time frames. So we just looked at AMD, we looked at Soxel, um, and even some of the non-semiconductor technology companies have these shooters. So they're all getting bought up by the same algorithm. So if one falls, then most likely all of them will be doing the same thing. So Intel again has a shooter just like Soxel and AMD. So a shooter here on the 3-month will be validated underneath that 3076 on the 3-month, validating that, and then taking that potentially to 3289 on the 3-month trigger and target. And then more so on the month, this is a fail to down, but we did finish red for the month. The month could give you an even earlier trigger of below 40.63, and that could trigger into the 3-month trigger. If we go 2 down on the month, going below 40.63, then that could trigger also the month at the 37.36 as another entry or potential target point. And then again, to the upside, 50% retracement of this candle on the month, slightly above open of the month, above that 44, let's say 85-ish, could potentially be bullish. And then we could potentially be going 2 up on the month, and that could be our target point there at 49.17 on Intel. So if this, then that. If it clears underneath 40.63, then we could take out 37.76, potentially 32.89. If it holds above 44.86, then we could go 2 up on the month and take out 49.17 on Intel. I look over to the left. CRM can get to 186 on the 3-month chart, previous swing low. Google looks like a fail to up and it's triggering levels puts on the 3-month, targeting 282 puts. HD has shooter on the 3-month, could get back to previous swing low, 260. Yeah, HD looked pretty bad. I was looking at that. CRM, I was looking at the cybersecurity companies, and this didn't look good. So on the month, we have that inside candle. Hold on. On the month, we have the inside candle looking for a break of that range there. 204, let's say 205-ish is bullish to take out 216.89 on the month. Below 178.82 is bearish to potentially take out 174.50-ish. That's on the month. On the 3-month, we have, I thought this was outside, but it's not. It's basically just the 2 down there on the 3-month. And that's kind of what drew my attention that looks kind of bad. So the 3-month trigger to the downside will be taking out that 174 60-ish. And then that could potentially even play out all the way to these levels here. Let's just be a little conservative and say like this level. 143.75 is where it could potentially go if it breaks that 174 60-ish to the downside on CRM. If not, we have that inside candle on the month, and we could potentially target those levels there to the upside. 216, breaking 204 or 205. Breaking 205, we could target 216. Breaking below 170, 880, we could take 174.50-ish. And then if we hold below that 174.50-ish, we could take out 143 in the long term. That would be triggering the 3-month. And the target would then be somewhere around the 143.75 area for CRM. Google. Google on the 3-month is a fail to up, which is basically bearish. And so we're looking for that fail to up to be validated underneath 272.11. That would be the trigger. That would be our bearish trigger to the downside. And then we would target 235.84 would be our target down. And then again, our line in the sand back to the upside potentially would be 50% retracement of this 3-month, since that's where we see the actionable signal. Somewhere around 310.80, that would be our sign that we're beginning to be a lot more bullish. And then if we are bullish above that level, then we could target 349 on Google. And then HD on the month, we have that fell 2 up into a 2 down. Nice entry breaking below that level there. And so now we're just looking for continuation. It is at levels where it has popped before, so we want to be mindful of this for support potentially right here, as we can see on the 3-month, where it just can't seem to get below strong or close below this zone. So we want to be mindful of that. If we can hold below that 320.26, then we could potentially target like closing this fair value gap, which would be this level here. 303.45 to the downside. Same trigger for this kind of shooter on the 3-month. The same triggers to the downside on the month. And then on the month, our line in the sand. This is the line in the sand would be 50% retracement, which would be roughly around here. 348.15 would be our sign that we're getting bullish. And then from there, we could potentially target the high of this candle here, which would be 375 to the upside. Oops. On HD. XLY. XLY, 3-month outside candle, triggering on the levels for puts. McDonald's has an inverted shooter on the 3-month triggering levels for puts. Okay, so let's take a look at those and see what's going on with that. Uh, XLY. So XLY has a red outside down candle near the top of a Broadner formation. You can even draw another Broadner formation from here to here. So we have that near at the top of a Broadner formation. Looking for that to continue down below 105.19 and potentially take out 86.55 to the downside. It could be as simple as this. Most of the times it's not, but let's just hope that it is as simple as this. Bearish underneath 105.19 to target 86.55 on consumer discretionaries. Consumer discretionaries. And then we have, again, our line in the sand that we potentially become bullish above the 50% retracement of the 3-month, which would look something like this around 114, let's say 115. The 3-month, which would take us to a target of 125 if we get bullish. On XLY. Just another one that I wanted people to potentially look at since we're looking at these sectors is XLU. This is not the sexiest of sectors, but it is at the top of a broader formation trying to work its way through it and disrespect this resistance. Just keep an eye on this and potentially tickers that are inside of it. On that 3-month, it doesn't necessarily have a trigger. We do have an outside candle there. So this could be a 3-2 continuation above 47.80. And it's looking like we're at all-time highs. So this could continue the uptrend to the upside. On the 3-month there, right here on the monthly, as you can see, we're kind of like in a box, swing high, swing low, broke out of the box, came back into the box this month. So we're looking for a continuation above 46.89 to take out our trigger of 47.80 on the 3-month there. And that box, it looks like, was drawn on the weekly. So this is a box, a swing box, where we can see it a little bit more clearly. This is the swing high. This is the swing low. Came out of the box, created us a target point. Our target point is also our trigger on the 3-month, back into the box. And so now we're looking forward to come back out of the box, trigger, and continue up on XLU. And then last but not least, here we have McDizzle. Not sure if any of these drawings were relevant. It does look like here on the week, we have this resistance that it just couldn't quite stay above. Keep that in mind. On the month, we have this outside down candle. So that's another, I think that was outside. Yeah, it looks like it broke the level. Yep, so we got a 3. So continuation, 3-2 down on the month from the top of this broad formation here, which we could actually redraw from there to there. That would definitely be a broad formation as well. This swing high to this swing high. Top of the broad formation, we have a 3 down outside candle triggering on the month below 304.78 would be the bearish trigger to potentially take out these lows down here. We're talking about 2 298, 294 to the downside triggers. Sorry, not triggers, but targets to the downside. If we trigger below 304.78, target down 229 to 298 would be a target, and 294 would be a target to the downside on the month of McDonald's if we trigger below 304.78. On the 3 month, we have a shooter with the same, and the trigger point for the shooter will be 298.30-ish. And then the next level down, which we would target, would be around 292 on the target for the 3 month to the downside. Again, we go back to the month. We could do our 50% retracement, draw a line in the sand. If we get bullish up in here, could be somewhere around the 50% level, which would be 323-ish. Above there will be bullish. And then we will potentially target going up on the month as our take profit level. And that will be 341.75 on Mickey D's. All right. I think that was all of the tickers. Let's see. Definitely covered a lot. Just want to leave you all with I think is Keith still here? Did you have any ending notes that you wanted to make sure that we touched on? Well, here's one. Our Level Up Challenge. Do not forget about this. It's starting on April 4th. This is the all-inclusive 7-day challenge that we are doing, where we'll be basically teamwork trading using the Level Up system of trading, as we most of us are familiar with already. So we have a whole dedicated platform. I know some of you may have tested it today and help us, get out those last minute kinks to make sure that that is primed and ready for you all on April 4th. Definitely don't want to miss out on this. If you want, please get signed up before the 4th so that we can have you in attendance. I believe the last time we checked, it was around 37 spots left because it is a limited number of spots. I'm sure it's less than that now. So definitely, if it's still available, you want to make sure that you sign up for that. And there's also a discount available as well as a payment plan for the Level Up Challenge that is available as well. The teams, I don't believe, have been assigned yet. We just want to make sure that everybody signs up. And once we have the final sign up day, which will be most likely coming towards the end of this week, then we'll start assigning the teams, and you should get notifications from the dashboard because you probably can't see it does have a My Team link, and that'll most likely be updated via the dashboard so you can see, what team you're on. So I tried, but I was locked out. So if you have any problems or issues with the levels challenge, definitely open up a ticket so we can make sure that your issue is documented, and then we can get back to you as soon as possible as well. All right. So these are some of the things, some of the new things that are inside of the Level Up Challenge. We definitely have the Levels Up Assistant, which is a new feature. That's definitely gonna, advance the whole system. It's basically like an assistant. It's giving you a synopsis of the market and whatnot. It's not pictured on here, but it's definitely a new feature with the Level Up Assistant. Other than that, does anybody have any questions or final issues or whatnot? I know someone said they had an issue with the levels. Definitely want to open up a ticket to make sure that that gets handled. And so it doesn't get lost in our chat once we're finished. But any other questions before we call it a night? Can we look at Coin and MS? Um, what's going on with them? Let me see if I can go back to. So Coin is going to be related to Bitcoin. Um, whatever Bitcoin does, Coin is going to do. On the month, we have a shooter validating the shooter underneath 158.46. That would be our trigger to the downside. At 158.46. We do have support area right here where this broadening formation is formed, and we see this wicking where price has bounced. So we could potentially take it down, let's say to this level here. 146.12 would be our potential target point. But again, we do have levels of support down there where price could potentially bounce back up. Specifically, if we don't even get down there and we start to retrace back above, 50% of this candle here on the month will be our line in the sand. Taking it back above 186 will be bullish. Bullish above there will potentially invalidate this shooter going two up. And that two up point would be our target point. So if we reach two up, our target point would be 213.50. And that would be our target to the upside. Our line in the sand to get bullish would be that 186, which is 50% retracement of that shooter candle there on the month. Targeting at that point 213.50. Validation of this shooter on the month to the downside will be breaking below 158. 50-ish, and then we would be targeting 146, which is really conservative because we do have these support down here where it might not necessarily want it to go further than that 146 or even reach the 146 on Coinbase. And then Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley on the month is it is a failed two down. And so we're looking forward to validate above this 169.60-ish. Our line in the sound to the downside is 50% retracement. Ish to the downside will be bringing the bears out. And then once the bears come out, we will potentially target it going two down on the month, which would be 152.80 would be our target to the downside. As far as if it breaks up above 169.60, we can target a 50% retracement of this. We have a bunch of targets. Go for the opening, go for the high, and also the 50% retracement because they're all above the level of entry. And so just to have multiple targets, that's what I will set it to. So this is the 50% retracement of that candle, pretty much right there. And then all of these would definitely just be potential target points to the upside. And we're talking 188-ish, 182, and 176 to the upside if we break above 169.60 on Morgan Stanley. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I thank you all for showing up and for staying. Hopefully this was helpful for you all. Again, this is recorded and will be uploaded as soon as the recording reaches the interwebs, the internet. Again, I thank you for showing up. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. And again, big thank you from me as well as Teach That Trade. And I will see you all the next time.